There are people at high levels in this government who have bodyguards 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The average American does not have that.
Mayor Bloomberg, why can you defend yourself but not the majority of Americans? I mean, look at the team of security you got.
Every day, every school, at every level. One thing that I think is clear with young people and with adults as well is that we just have to be repetitive about this, and we need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Was this the weapon of choice for a new kind of terrorist? When a 5-year-old girl said she and a classmate should shoot each other with bubbles, the school called it a terrorist threat.
AK-47s belong in the hands of soldiers, not in the hands of criminals.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny.
Lay down your arms, you damn rebels!
But we don't need the ability to arm ourselves against the Army or the police.
What kind of a situation in the U.S. would you see that happening?
I mean, we've got a lot of constitutionalists and a lot of people that stockpile weapons.
Discovered the clergy would help the government with potentially their biggest problem, us.
To say we're not turning our guns in, and we're not running, and we're not backing down. If you want them, come and take them.
I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. Take advantage of this at InfoWarsLife.com.
And why wearing a Hillary for President t-shirt might get you punched in the face.
They thought it said Hillary for President. He said, I was seconds away from sending my bar back over here to punch you in the face. Since you're wearing a Hillary for Prison shirt, you don't have to buy drinks here. Everything's on the house.
Hillary for prison! Hillary's not surging, I tell you that. They're not saying that. They're not saying that. Thank you.
There you have it. Donald Trump endorses Hillary for prison. Get your Hillary for Prison 2016 t-shirt at the InfoWars store. And on the back, it says, legalize freedom. Show your disapproval of Hillary by buying your t-shirt today.
But what she's done is criminal.
This is an American president. Just add puppet, then vote and repeat every 4 years.
Meanwhile, we've got mixed news on the whole tranny mania. Houston bathroom bill. Voters reject LGBT ordinance that men can go into women's bathrooms and that men can go into theirs. They have to build special bathrooms and all the rest of this. And you'll walk into a place to get your hair cut now, and they'll be like, sorry, we don't have transgender bathrooms yet, but we will. And it's just like, it's like, hey, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the galaxy. NASA just came out with top physicists and said they believe that there are other parallel universes. You know, there are some other, it's just there are other things other than trannies, other than men in dresses. But Illinois district violated transgender students' right, says boys who think they're girls can go in the girls' locker rooms when they're changing clothes and take their clothes off with them. That's the New York Times. See, because they can get away with that. They can get away with anything. It's the collapse of civilization. It's the destruction of the family. It has nothing to do with somebody's sexual preference. It is about messing with everyone and making everyone adopt this particular lifestyle. And prominent feminist, lesbian Camille Paglia, who's been writing for decades about the collapse of civilization and just the facts of life, that when you see massive attacks on men, massive attacks on family, it will be the collapse of civilization. But this is by design. Powerful article, CNS News reported on her article, Paglia, transgender mania is a symptom of the West cultural collapse. Well, so is saying Germans can't drink beer at Oktoberfest because it offends the Muslims. I'm open. I'm not against Muslims. I want them to be able to have their life as long as they don't infringe on mine. And a lot of Muslims don't want to infringe on our lifestyles, whatever they may be, conservative, liberal, libertarian. But they're being bullied and controlled by radical Islam that is becoming the dominant Islam. And there have been periods when Islam was totally about the sword and periods when it wasn't. It's a very diverse history. But it was born out of the sword, and the Quran says it's about the sword. And then people try to deny this with political correctness. Paglia, transgender mania is a symptom of the West cultural collapse. Nothing better defines the decadence of the West to the jihadists than our toleration of open homosexuality and transgender mania now. Play that clip.
Sex reassignment surgery, even today, with all of its advances, cannot in fact change anyone's sex. Okay, you can define yourself as a trans man or a trans woman at one of these new gradations along the scale. But ultimately, every single cell in the human body, the DNA in that cell remains coded for your biological birth. So there are a lot of lies being propagated at the present moment. Okay, which I think is not in anyone's best interest. Okay. What I'm concerned about is the popularity and the availability of sex reassignment surgery. So it's someone who is doesn't feel that he or she belongs to the biological birth and gender. People are being encouraged to intervene in the process. Parents are now encouraged to subject the child to procedures that I think are a form of child abuse, surgical manipulations, etc. I think that this is wrong, that people should wait until they're of an informed age of consent. Parents should not be doing this to their children. And I think that even in the teenage years it's too soon to be making this leap. People change, people grow, and people adapt. In my study of history in sexual personae, I'm always talking about the late phases of culture, and I was always drawn to the late or decadent phase of culture. Oscar Wilde is one of the great exponents of that in the late 19th century. He's one of my strongest influences from my earliest years. And I found, in my study, that history is cyclic. And everywhere in the world, you find this pattern, in ancient times, that as a culture begins to decline, you have an efflorescence, of transgender phenomena, That is a symptom of cultural collapse, So rather than people sing the praises of humanitarian liberalism, that allows all of these transgender possibilities, to appear and to be encouraged, I would be concerned about how.
I want to finish up with the Camille Paglia clip. We played the first half of it. And then there's several articles that are linked to in the story on INFOWARS.com where she elaborates on it. But whether it was ancient Greece or Rome or Babylon or China, in every culture, when men start to behave like women and men start to dress like women, that is done in the final phase before a total collapse. And Paglia came out and said that transgender mania is a symptom of the West culture collapse. Let's go back to the clip where we left it off. Here it is.
To the world, because in fact these phenomena are inflaming the irrational, indeed borderline psychotic opponents of Western culture in the form of ISIS and other jihadists. Nothing more better defines the decadence of the West to the jihadists, than our toleration of open homosexuality and this transgender mania now. I think that any vision of the future, the futurists from the science fiction of the late 19th century into the 20th century century. Usually they have projected that men and women in distant space, okay, will start to conform to each other in gender. And you see that in, you see it in Star Wars. Gender seems to start to be erased. Men and women are working side by side, almost as units, and there's something mechanical about it. This shaving away of gender differences, okay? Yes,
right.
More and more, the masculine is seen as somehow retrograde.
That's right. She realizes there's a scientific attack on men, and she knows a lot more than she's letting on. I'll just leave it at that. She's a smart lady. She studied history. And she is for people to have equality and freedom and for people not to be abused. But you've got to defend masculinity because that is the bipolar heart of humanity. The feminine and the masculine together make humanity. That is our journey together over thousands of years, over the eons. Our struggles. And women have done things to men, men have done things to women. But to then have the species turn against itself is the end of the species as we know it. And the social engineers, the social Darwinists, the transhumanist eugenicists have written countless books that we've reviewed, we've covered, we've quoted, I've made films admitting this plan. And she's trying to get folks to think. She's a smart professor. So she's giving them little hints. Like, it's almost like it's a machine. It's almost like they're stripping something away. It's almost like we're being dehumanized. We're side by side working like prisoners. That's right. The globalists are jealous of that connection between men and women. They don't like the love humans have for each other. Brotherhood, kinship, fatherhood, motherhood. Male bonding, they're going after rituals of men bonding. They're going after rituals of women bonding. The globalists admit in their own plans, in Brave New World Revisited, nonfiction, that Brave New World written in 1932. Go read that book 90 years later. 90 years later. Brave New World. Almost 90 years later. And you go read that, and it's almost all come true in ways. And Huxley explained in 62 before he died, as I've said many times, I played the interview here, an hour-long speech at Princeton, hour-long speech at Berkeley, excuse me, he did one at Princeton as well. And he said, no, my brother runs the UN. This is the eugenics plan. We call it transhumanism. And once we mix up the sexes and put chemicals in the food and water, then we're going to feminize men, make women masculine, but then we're going to mix the two, and then we're going to have a planned species, and you're going to be asexual. You're all going to have shaved heads. You're going to wear gray uniforms. And you're like, I've heard of that. I saw that in the movie THX 1138, which George Lucas admits is his version of Brave New World. So we're getting messed with here because the only way to conquer humanity, humanity will always resist you. The only way to conquer humanity once and for all is to end humanity as we are known, as we have been. And that's why the major textbooks that we've covered here across the United States admit and say the family belongs to the bygone archaic era and is barbarous and must be phased out and finally eradicated.
Well, that's it for our show tonight. If you'd like to support us, go to prisonplanet.tv. You can get yourself a free trial and it helps our broadcast. Well, I'm Jakari Jackson from the InfoWars Command Center, and we'll see you again tomorrow night.
Knockout is back. If you want a product that has 10 known ingredients that naturally get your body to relax, your brain to relax, so you get deep, restful sleep, Knockout's it. InfoWarsLife.com. L-theanine, hops flower extract, lemon balm extract, valerian root extract, chamomile flower extract, L-tryptophan extract, melatonin, and more. All organic, all the natural sources. It's the same price as leading brands of melatonin that are 3 milligrams apiece. It has 3 milligrams, the standard recommended dose for an adult. It's got the GABA, so it would probably cost $50 to take all this as separate pills. It's $19.95. You take one or two of these, and it just is really clean, restful sleep is what the reviews are. It's what I've experienced. and it just synergistically puts everything in there. InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com, or call 888-253-3139.
You are watching the InfoWars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.